Now that we completed the select sample sequence, we are going to finish our last sequence, which is to input additional details in the working paper. As I mentioned before, we are going to fill out the blanks in yellow. So now let's go to the last sequence, input additional details. So first, we are going to use the Excel application scope. And the workbook path is going to be the working paper.xlsx. And to insert values in these cells, we are going to use the right cell activity. So let's search for the right cell activity and choose the one from the Excel automation and drag and drop the activity into the do box. And let's change the name of the tab into sample selection. And let's go from the first one. So the first cell that we need to fill out is the client name, and it's in cell B2. So here it's B2. The value to be inserted is the client name, and we obtained this variable from our first sequence. So it's we already have it here, client name. And for the second one, period ending, we also have it, so we can directly do similar things. Change the name into sample selection, and it's in cell B3, and the value is period end date. We also got this variable from our first sequence. And we also have value for the number of transactions of the population and the total dollar amount of the transactions. We obtained these two variables from the third sequence where we import the population data. So let's use another right cell and change the name into sample selection. And here the cell is B13. The value to be inserted is, if you remember, it's total pop transactions, right? This one. And here we need to convert this to string because when we use the count function from the Balareva package, the variable type is an object. So here to insert it to the Excel, we are converting this to string. And also we can insert the value of the total dollar amount to cell B14. And similarly, let's change the name. And here, B14. The value is, if you remember, it's total amount pop. So that's the total dollar amount that we obtained from the sum function from the Balareva package. And similarly, we need to do toString. We will leave these blanks at the end because we need to calculate these values using the Balareva package. So let's continue with the upper and lower limits because we have values for them directly. So let's use another right cell. And here, change it to sample selection. This is going to be B16. Here it's upper limit. Okay. And then another right cell for the lower limit. This is going to be sample selection B17 and lower limit. Okay, so now let's deal with these cells. So for the total number of key items, we can just use a count function from the Balareva package, and also similarly for the non-key items. And also we can use the sum function for the total amount. And then for the total sample, this is going to be the sum of these two cells, and the total dollar amount will be the sum of these two. So we're going to use the right cell to insert the function, the Excel function, and I'll show you later. So let's first deal with the total number of transactions. So right after the right cell, let's insert this count activity. and we are counting the ID, right? If you remember, the input table, here, let's first count the key items. So it's going to be DT key item here. And let's save the output into a new variable named num key items. And since we have this number of key items, let's immediately write it to the cell of C13. Change this into sample selection, and this is going to be C13. And here it's num key items dot toString. And we can use another count to count the number of non-key items. Similarly, the column name is ID, input table is DT non-key item. And for the variable, let's save it as num non-key items. And then use a right cell and change the tab name, sample selection, and we are writing to D13. And this is going to be non-key items toString. Okay, so we have these cells covered, C13 and D13. Next, let's use a sum activity to get the total dollar amount. Now, let's first deal with the total dollar amount of the key items. For the column name, we are summing up the amount column, right? So it's amount. And then we need to convert the data type into double. Input table is DT key item. And let's save the result into a new variable of total amount key items. And then let's use a right cell and change the tab name, sample selection, and we are writing to C14. And here it's total amount key items toString. And use another sum, and let's deal with the non-key items. For the column name, it's still amount, and let's change the data type into double. Input table is DT non-key item. And then result, Control K and create a variable named total amount non-key items. And then use a right cell. It's going to be sample selection. Cell is going to be D14, and we are inserting the total amount of non-key items toString. Okay, so now we have these cells covered. Now we are going to insert the Excel function into the total sample. So if we are doing it manually, it's like we are doing this equal this plus this, right? And then similarly, it's going to be equal C14 plus D14. So here we're going to insert the same thing. We're going to insert the Excel function of this equal C13 plus D13. So let me show you how to do this. So delete whatever you do here. Make sure it's blank. Okay, so now use another right cell. Of course, change the tab name into sample selection, and we are inserting to E13, and see here, you can either insert a value or a formula, right? So here we are inserting a formula, and in other cases, we are inserting a value. So here, let's insert the formula and put the formula inside a quotation mark. So quotation mark equals C13 plus D13. And another right cell, change the tab name, sample selection, and this is E14, and the formula is, in quotation mark, equals C14 plus D14. Okay, and at the end, we're going to save the workbook. Okay, so now we finished the entire automation, and let's save our work and come back to the flowchart. Let's test our automation and see whether it's working. And before that, let's close our Excel and let's run. Great. Now let's go to our project folder and open the working paper. And we can see that, first of all, we have the key items, we have the non-key items, and we have all these details here. So make sure that your key items have the same information as what I have here. So we have 11 key items, and the total dollar amount is like this, and this is for the population, and these should be the same. And if you check the sample documentation, we have our screenshot here. All right, so in this project, I show you how to automate the audit sampling, and you can extend this project to your real life work or to your other projects.